Just remind me what happened before you ended up in that critical situation, because you had a nasty fall and broke a lot of bones, but that was only the first part of it.
Yeah, I had a bad fall in Haydock. It was middle of April 22, and the horse landed on me, so I broke my femur. So I was on the way to hospital with just a standard broken femur, so to put it like that. And unfortunately, apparently I was perfectly with it the whole time, no head injuries, anything like that. I spoke to Jamie, my brother, on the phone, and I spoke to one of our owners, Ashley Carr, who travelled up with me to Haydock, and when I was at the hospital, I came up in a funny rash, and like they'd rung my wife and my mother and said like everything was fine, just expecting someone's going to travel up the next day to pick me up, take me home. But in the nights, I kind of shut down, if you like. I started to show bad signs. They didn't really understand what was going on. I had also broke my back, refractured a vertebrae, which I'd done previously. I'd punctured a lung for broken ribs, and they couldn't really understand what was going on with my body, because it was swollen up all over. Had a bad rash all over my body, and they couldn't really understand, and I ended up going into a coma. It wasn't an induced coma, it was kind of, I was on the ventilator, because they were planning to operate the next morning, but it all changed very quickly. So I had a thing called embolism syndrome, where the bone marrow leaks from the large bone in your body that's broken and gets into your bloodstream, has to go somewhere.
And you'd obviously broken the largest bone in your body.
Yeah. It's, apparently either goes to your lungs or your brain. Your body just pumps it through its bloodstream. That's why I wear glasses now, because the capillaries in my eyes, there's lots of capillaries in your eyes, they're so small that some of the cells in my eyes died, so they don't ever repair, obviously. So it was blocked, and they were trying to work out what was going on. They thought I'm not sure if I was brain damaged from the fall, or they didn't know what was going on. So they done a big case study on it, actually. Luckily, there was an ex-army doctor on shift that evening in the Aintree Hospital. He kind of had an idea from the major traumas he dealt with in the army about what this may be. So he said, look, I think this is what's happening. I think it's embolism syndrome.
And there'd have been medics in that hospital, experienced ones, that would have never seen fat embolism syndrome in their lives.
Yes, exactly that, yeah. It's just by chance that there was that doctor happened to be working that evening. It's just kind of like, look, just calm down here. This is what's going on. And luckily he was right, because they weren't sure if I was brain damaged, or even 2 months afterwards in the Wellington in London, they thought, because I couldn't talk for a long time, they thought I had to be brain damaged because I couldn't get speaking. And luckily my mum throughout was kind of on the ball about everything. She was kind of listening to the doctors and sort of saying, look, just hold on, it might be this. That kind of, at home they prepared for me not being able to walk again, etc., and prepared for the worst. And luckily the worst didn't happen, but it was a worrying time for everyone, I think. But yes, I've done 4 months in Aintree Hospital, and then another 4 months in Haywards Heath in Sussex, and then another 4 weeks in the Wellington in London, which was, by the time you were in London, it was kind of frustration of being there, but I still couldn't talk at that point. I had a tracheostomy in my throat, and everything was blocked up in my throat, so it kind of took all the muscles kind of shut down. So it was getting them working again. And actually, I had a speech therapist trying to get me to speak every day, and then she was off one day, and there was another speech therapist that was in. She said, oh, look, Josh, you're not my case, but I just want to try something with you. So she said, can you just whisper some words? And I could whisper. She says, right, so you can whisper. That means you're not brain damaged. So she goes, just try a bit more tomorrow, and we'll tell the other speech therapist how you're going. And so she was very switched on about what to do, I thought. And as doctors can be, speech therapists, they wouldn't want to take the credit for another. They wouldn't want another one taking the credit for me getting speaking. But she did get to the problem.
And it tells you how satisfying that job must be when they're working with someone who's been so critically injured that just one little bit of thought, extra thought, can change so many people's lives, because then they could give reassurance to all your family that actually the brain was in not just working order, but in pretty good working order.
Yeah, no, it was like, I went up to see the nurses in Liverpool last year at the entry meeting, and they were also happy to see me, and they were talking to me as if I knew them, and I didn't have a clue who any of them were. I said, I'm so sorry, I do not know you. Like when I was here, I was in a coma, and they're like, yeah, but you.
your mum knows them very well. Phoebe knows them very well.
We know your wife well, we know your mum well, and you know it's great to have you here, because usually when people walk into our ward, when people come into our ward, they don't usually leave. So it's just nice to see someone walk back into our ward, knowing that our job is worthwhile.
And do they attribute that to the quick thinking of that doctor you were talking about and the people who helped you along the way, or is it more to do with you and your body and your innate ability to survive?
I learned how incredible the human body is, and dealing with handling situations. You probably don't have enough respect for the human body. It's quite incredible, and your body knows how to protect itself, if that makes sense. And I was fine, but it was just time. Like everything in life, it's just time. Just need to relax and slow things down.
Were there things in the recesses of your mind that would come back to you, either smells or sounds, or that from that period that you didn't think you'd remembered but have kind of come back to you? Is there anything that triggers that period? Yeah,
so when I went back to see the nurses in Liverpool, there was the noise of the ventilator. I said, is there anything you remember? I said, yeah, there is one thing that sticks clearly in my mind, and that's the noise of that ventilator going off every however many seconds it is for a person on a ventilator. She goes, oh yeah, we go to bed with that in our thoughts every night, that's noise.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, that memory sticks well and truly in my brain.
And you spoke very movingly there about just appreciating the human body and about the need to take time.
Yeah.
Is that now a mantra that you still live by?
Yeah, I've kind of, one thing I really learned in hospital. I couldn't talk at the time, I could only listen. And it's got to understand how things do repair themselves, how you just don't need to be in a rush with things, because things will happen. Things will work out the way they're meant to work out. It's just kind of, I've learned it more with training racehorses. You can't make things happen. You just got to kind of let things happen, and it'll work out for the best way it is. If you just don't try and force things, because things need time to happen. And if you try and make things happen quicker, then you're most likely gonna set yourself back, you know. And it's just, like when I was in hospital, the last leg in St John's Wood in the Wellington, John Riddington was coming to see me every day, and I was appreciative for him coming to see me, because I couldn't talk, but he would just talk at me. And all I wanted was to be out of that place, because I was just fed up of being there. But when I got out of there, I thought to myself, actually, you probably should have stayed a couple of weeks longer, you know? But you're just in such a rush to get on with things that it's kind of, it makes you think, just slow things down.
You come from an incredibly close family, and we all know most of your family very well. But during that period, and you've touched on it briefly, but I'd like to know a little bit more, just how crucial your wife Phoebe and your mum Jane were during that period, and no doubt all your brothers and sister as well. But just what they were doing to make your recovery as best it could be.
Yeah, well, like my mum was up every day. My wife Phoebe's stayed up as well, and we've at the time Freddie would have been 2 years old.
This is your eldest.
My eldest son,
who's
Freddie.
Now 5.
Yeah, he's now 5. And her mum, her boss let her off work to kind of look after Freddie, which is very kind of him, because it's not in many jobs in life that your boss will let you kind of take a period of time off work, and so it wasn't his fault. I had a fault at Haydock, was it? And so Penelope was looking after Freddie, so Phoebe could stay up with me, and my mum was staying up with me because it was quite a testing time for them. Like, I think they got called at 2 o'clock in the morning to get to the hospital quick because they thought I wasn't going to make it through the night, and it was probably worrying for them, you know. So it's luckily I came through.
And is it the case that the impact on you now, when you speak about it, is more significant because of how you think of the worry that they were going through on your behalf?
Yes, because I wasn't aware of what was going on. I was in a coma, having the craziest dreams of my life. Someone asked me recently, what's it like to be in a coma? I said, well, funny enough, you're in a coma, you don't know a lot about it. But what I do remember is having very strange dreams. Like I went to Japan racing with Ryan, I went to Dubai on holiday, I went to Antigua on holiday, you know, it was crazy dreams.
So I remember when I was about 17, my father was in a coma for about 6 weeks, and I remember when he woke up, he said that he'd been to New Zealand, and he'd never been to New Zealand in his life, but it wasn't just that he'd been to New Zealand in a crazy dream, he could remember every detail about the trip there.
Yeah.
Was that the same for you?
Yeah.
Was it all the dreams were quite coloured?
Yeah, like I was in Japan, or in my coma. I was in Saudi Arabia in my coma. I'd never been to Saudi, but I had been to Japan, and it's amazing how much your brain can remember things, because I could obviously thought of things that I had remembered on going there previously, you know. So and obviously Dubai I'd been there before, and Antigua I'd been there before, and it's amazing what your brain deep down can think about.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.